The following is brought to you by Vertical Vet. Rethink your GPO.
Hi, welcome once again to Vertical Vet COVID-19 Practice Preparedness webinar series for veterinary professionals. I am Dr. Ernie Ward, Executive Director for Vertical Vet's Educational Department, and I am thrilled to be here with you for now. This is our 8th week, I think, going on dealing with COVID-19. And we've been trying to bring you a series of webinars and experts to help you navigate this new abnormal, whether it's been dealing with resources and human resources and taxes and federal stimulus, and now we're going into things like how do we return safely to work? And one of the questions that is on the minds of millions of pet parents, especially those that recently adopted or even fostered a pet during the pandemic quarantine period, is separation anxiety. And many of us are worried that we're going to see a surge in separation anxiety cases. And so we wanted to bring to you today an expert, behaviorist Dr. Leslie Sen. And many of you are familiar with her. She's going to talk to us today about how do we deal with this post-quarantine separation anxiety issues. And if you want to know more about her, definitely check her out online at behaviorsolutions.guru. But of course, she is a board-certified animal behaviorist. She is a professional liaison for the ACVB. She's fear-free certified. She's a dog trainer on top of all of that. I got to tell you, thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Sen.
My pleasure.
Well, listen, the biggest question that we are getting goes like this. Should pet parents, should veterinary professionals be worried about this surge, this swell of cases around separation anxiety as people suddenly go back to work? I mean, you know, I'm getting these questions. Yeah. They say, my dog's been in my lap for conference calls for 8 weeks. Are these people going to have a problem?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Ernie. And actually, it's a question that it's been a hot topic of discussion among both trainers and veterinary behaviorists, and we are concerned. The COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented situation, and you're right. I mean, spending 24/7 for months on end with a pet is likely to create a new norm, right? That's going to abruptly end when owners eventually have to return to work. And it would be very naive on our part to assume that a change like that is going to go smoothly for everyone. It's going to be an abrupt change that is going to be difficult for some of the animals to navigate. So that with that in mind, it would make sense, right, to be proactive in terms of minimizing problems before they happen. In addition to that, we know that separation anxiety is actually a pretty common and underdiagnosed condition. And the incidence in dogs in most studies is somewhere around 14 to 20%. We know it's a problem. We know it's out there, and all this snuggling is great for reducing our anxiety. But I'm not sure how much support we're providing for our pets long term if we then have to go back to work.
And I think you really hit on a couple of key points I want to repeat here for our veterinary colleagues, and that is, number one, it is, we believe, grossly underdiagnosed. I even saw a recent survey that showed as many as 1 in 7 dogs exhibited at least one symptom consistent with canine separation anxiety, and yet the owners weren't pursuing any help. So they were just, these are those behaviors I call, they're annoying. The problem is annoying goes to unacceptable rather rapidly and can escalate. The other thing I wanted to kind of get your opinion on is we have seen a real growth in first-time pet adoptions during the pandemic.
Yes.
People fostering in record numbers. What do you think the experience level of some of these new pet parents is going to, is that going to have an impact as well with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a variation, in knowledge level. First-time dog owners certainly brings to the situation a lot of enthusiasm, which is lovely, but they just don't know what is normal or what is average or what is common behavior for a dog. So a lot of times they miss early warning signs, miss subtle indications of stress and anxiety in these dogs, and only seek help when it starts to become catastrophic.
Right.
They're being forced with eviction notices.
Right.
The neighbors are complaining. Lawsuits are being
Right.
filed.
Right.
Dogs are being injured. I mean, it's not something that necessarily pops up overnight,
Right.
but it's something that maybe they just didn't have the expertise or the knowledge base to recognize early on.
Yeah, and I think, regardless of if it is truly an anxiety disorder, I think we're going to have a lot of panicked pet parents calling us. And I think that that's going to be the first sentinel of this wave of issues potentially. So I think that veterinary professionals hear us loudly and clearly. We think you need to prepare yourself now for these phone calls. I think it's inevitable.
Right.
I think that, again, we're going to have a lot of first-time pet parents that are going to say, oh my gosh, my dog, chewed up the rug or something. And again, it may not rise to the level of a pathological behavior. However, they're going to need help and assistance, and we're going to have to help them navigate that. So that leads me to really where I want to now jump into, and that is the question we're getting was, what are the clinical signs of canine separation anxiety? And again, I know Dr. Sen, we can deal with separation anxiety in a wide variety of species, but I think for this conversation, I really want to limit it to dogs, maybe with a secondary emphasis on cats. So what is separation anxiety? How does a veterinary professional diagnose it?
Yeah, so separation anxiety is basically a distress response that a dog or a cat exhibits when they're separated from person or persons that they have an attachment to, right? And the distress response in the absence of the owner can manifest itself in such a way that they're problem behaviors. And the most common complaints, or the most common things that we see, are things like vocalization, howling, barking, elimination in the home, so urination and defecation, and even periods of destruction, so destroying items that normally would not be of interest to the dog. So things like chewing around door frames, point of entry, point of exits into the home, and non-food items. There may be different motivations for it. It may not just be just distress from separation from the owner. It may be that the animal becomes panicked when it's confined in its crate, or becomes worried because of secondary noise phobias or fears. But all those combine to, at least in terms of the owner, evidence of separation anxiety.
Yeah. Right. And I think that it's really important to note that there are some normal behaviors that closely mimic canine separation anxiety. I mean, there are territorial vocalizations, for example, nuisance barking, and dogs that just are poorly house trained. I mean, so it's really important as veterinary professionals that we do discern between an underlying pathological behavior as opposed to something that is, I guess the term is less serious. That's an awful way to look at it. But, again, it's a different thing.
Unwanted, but not necessarily abnormal, right? And I think the key word is that these behaviors occur in the absence of the owner, right? So that's kind of the baseline, or the starting point criteria. We were talking about this earlier, actually, when we were chatting prior to coming on air, about how valuable video is in those situations or circumstances, to be able to determine exactly what is going on and if there might be some other inciting cause for the behavior. I can clearly remember a video that was shared with me by a client. She was convinced that her dog had separation anxiety, and I urged her to obtain the video, which she shared with me. And she left the home. The dog was being videoed. He kind of went, she's gone. And then you watched him get up and cruise the family room, kind of looking, until he found a nice fluffy pillow, yanked it off the sofa, proceeded to methodically shred it, then played with the fluff, romped around, and then crashed and took a nap. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. That is not separation anxiety, but maybe we could provide your dog with more appropriate toys and give him some exercise, So video is is really key to establishing this diagnosis.
Yeah, and with today, I mean, the abundance of security cameras. I mean, you can
Yeah.
set up your smartphone. I mean, there's just
Yep.
there's really no excuse. I mean, back in our early days, and I'll date myself, we didn't have these technologies, and so this was sort
Yeah.
of a big unknown. I remember asking clients for years to videotape their dogs in their backyards to try to convince them their dog wasn't exercising all day. My work in research and obesity, and so,
Yep.
but today, really we can capture vividly and accurately what's actually happening when it comes to behavior disorders.
Yeah.
I think video is without a doubt the key tool here. So again, just to reiterate, we're talking about when you are spatially separated from your dog, these are the behaviors that we're starting to look at. There's an entire list, of other things you need to rule out first, and including CDS or cognitive dysfunction in older dogs, pain from medical conditions. I mean, you and I could go on and on, but as veterinary professionals, we need to make sure we're clear, like your case. That was more of a environmental enrichment solution, as opposed to
Correct.
an underlying psychology.
Yes.
So, all right. So
Yes.
that gets us to another good question that we've been getting, and that's why do dogs get separation anxiety in the first place? I mean, you've kind of hinted at some mechanisms, but is there a way to prevent it from happening? And are certain breeds or types of dogs more predisposed to canine separation anxiety?
Yeah, well, good questions, all of them. I wish I could give you definitive answers to all of them, but if you come up with a great research grant, let me know, and we can fund some of those studies. But there are several theories, associated with separation anxiety, and I think the two primary ones are associated with hyperattachment. Canines are social animals. They've been selected for thousands of years to be pro-social and interested in people. They come from a pack background, if you will, behaviorally. They are interested in the presence of other animals. And now when we've done all this heavy selection for that pro-social behavior and for that attachment, we now leave and work and go away for 8-10 hours at a crack, leaving the dog at home alone, right? Some research studies have substantiated that hyperattachment theory. Others have not. So the jury's out on that, but that is one theory. And the other is just associated with general anxiety, that separation anxiety is simply another aspect of anxiety itself, generalized anxiety, and that the dog is better able to cope or is more secure in the presence of a security figure, if you will, than by itself. And that's kind of more where we're trending to now. Often these dogs have other indications of anxiety when, even when the owner is present, and often some 40 or 50% of them have comorbid conditions, meaning they have other issues or problems. For example, noise phobia or noise sensitivity. So those are the two main thoughts behind why dogs get separation anxiety. In terms of predispositions, are there any animals that are more likely to get it than others? It's a chicken or the egg kind of thing. We know that dogs that originate from shelters, rescue backgrounds, veterinary hospitals are more likely to have an issue with separation anxiety. We know that dogs that have been picked up as strays are more likely to have separation anxiety. So we always speculate that these dogs maybe broke out of their homes when their owners were away, and that's how they were picked up as strays. I mean, we don't know. Dogs that have never had any kind of obedience training are more likely to have separation anxiety. Again, we don't know chicken or the egg kind of thing, but it is a trend. Dogs that show excessive greeting behavior, over-the-top greeting behavior, and that follow their owners around, that have that, what we half jokingly talk about, the Velcro dogs that are stuck to people. Yep. That those are dogs that are more likely to have issues with separation anxiety. Doesn't matter if they're mixed or purebred. That seems to afflict everyone across the board. Male dogs may be slightly more predisposed to separation anxiety than female dogs, but the percentage difference isn't significant. And most dogs that are going to develop separation anxiety are going to do it before 3 years of age. You brought up a great point before that if you have an older dog that all of a suddenly is showing signs of separation anxiety, you should really be looking for evidence of cognitive decline in that older dog.
Yeah, and it's interesting because people always want to blame breeds, and I'm quick to point out that, just like in humans with anxiety disorders, you don't always find it in families. I mean, you do. There are some, research that suggests that. But the reality is it's such a complicated, multifactorial issue that, I was recently talking to a lady and they're like, well, all Huskies have separation anxiety. And it's like, okay, maybe the traits, the tendencies that we have selected that dog for lead it to, not do so well in a small apartment in downtown LA. But again, that's a slightly different issue. I don't know, again, when we're talking about a separation anxiety disorder, we have to sort of tease it out, break it apart from other contributing factors. That doesn't mean that Huskies in downtown LA won't develop canine separation anxiety.
Right.
But I don't know that we would say they all have it for sure.
Yeah, no way. Like I said, to date, the studies that have been done show that it's an equal opportunity disorder. And that you're going to see it in purebreds and mixed breeds and across all genders and all breeds. So,
and one quick point, just to for veterinarians and veterinary technicians that are going to be dealing with those panicked first-time parents, remember too, Dr. Sen, I'd like to get you to weigh in, but I've always been taught that dogs under a year of age, roughly, puppies, we don't diagnose them with separation anxiety. I mean, that doesn't mean they're not trending towards that or displaying early signs of, but, maybe help us out with some of those, differentiate between like puppy behavior, puppy destruction, vocalization, inappropriate elimination, as opposed to like a 2-year-old.
Right. Well, I think that that young dogs can develop separation anxiety. However, you need that video, right, to know what the heck's going on. Because in a much younger dog, say a puppy or a youngster that's under 9 months of age, some of those behaviors that we talked about being unwanted but not necessarily abnormal are much more common, right? So a puppy that hasn't, for example, gotten sufficient exercise or isn't being stimulated and is in an environment that just doesn't meet their mental needs, so they're not getting enough enrichment opportunities. I can give you an example from my own life. I have been adopting young adult dogs for a number of years, and just 4 years ago ended up getting a puppy. And I know I brought this on myself, so I will grin this with a smile, but I got a border collie puppy. And I thought I was going to die before we got that border collie puppy to the point where he was manageable, because he was taking on average between 2 to 4 hours a day of direct interaction and engagement and exercise. And if we hadn't provided that, I can't even begin to imagine the kind of behaviors that he would have exhibited. And the average person who's working, they're not going to be able to provide that.
Right. And again, this is where helping people select proper pets. I mean, we've all been taught this and probably told our clients this over the years, select the right pet for your lifestyle. But, again, with a border collie in particular, we have selected them for certain traits. And of course, amongst them is not only vigilance, but this herding mentality. They have a strong trainability drive, as well as, needing to follow things that are moving quickly. So if you give them a downtown LA apartment, 800 square feet, you're going to have some behavioral problems. So you got to really counsel these people. And again, I was talking to a lovely person in San Francisco recently who does live in a small apartment, Dr. Sen. And the reality is she takes extraordinary effort to get this dog out for over an hour a day. It's not a border collie, but it is an active so you can make it work, but you're going to have to be willing and committed. And I think that's where a lot of pet parents really don't understand what they're signing up for.
Right.
All right, so
no, absolutely true.
So we are really, really fortunate to have an expert like you today with us, Dr. Leslie Sen, a board-certified animal behaviorist. And a major question that pet parents are asking all over the country is, what should they be doing now? They're seeing the easement of work restrictions over the next few weeks. They have been cuddling their dog in their lap for the past 2 months while they do conference calls and answer emails. So what can they do today to help prevent anxiety problems later?
Yeah. So again, another really great question. You get good ones from your audience and from your people. There are some common sense actions that people can take. So first off would be to encourage independence in their dog. And what I mean by that is, and we've all been guilty of it, myself included, your dog comes up to you and kind of mugs you for attention. They get attention on demand, and without even thinking about it, like when we're doing this conference or talking on the phone or working at the computer, dog comes up, nudges you, you pet the dog. Dog sticks his face in your lap, you pet the dog. Dog bumps you, you pull him up into your lap. So basically providing attention on demand. And it doesn't mean that you can't love your dog and snuggle with your dog, but it does mean that when they're soliciting attention, you ask them to do something first. Give a little bit of space, a little bit of pause. Once they perform the desired behavior, then you reward them for performing the desired behavior, and you can give them attention. So just a little getting them back off. And what do I mean by desired behavior? I mean, it could be something as simple as asking them to sit, or asking them to touch your hand, or asking them to lie down, but just not being an on-call Pez dispenser of affection for the dog. So encouraging independence. You can work on encouraging calm, quiet behavior, encouraging them to relax, to settle. We were talking about the Velcro dogs being in your face, touching, wanting to be on you all the time. Enough. Sit. Deep breath. Yes, that's the behavior that I want, not the hair up on top of me behavior. So settle, relax, chill, and reward that behavior. If you've got multiple members in your household, spreading out the care of your dog between multiple members of your household so that the dog's not solely dependent on just a single individual. So not having, one person always be responsible for the feeding and the walking and the petting and the grooming and the playing, but just dispersing it a little bit. So the absence of that one single figure isn't quite so critical or quite so traumatic for the dog. Stepping away from the dog periodically. I mean, most of us have enough space to be able to at least go to the bathroom or go to the garage or something. Dog doesn't have to be in the shower with you when you're taking a shower, right? So stepping away for a few minutes and making sure that you enforce those distances. Taking any trips that you take, leaving the dog behind. Before COVID, whenever I took a trip, the dog came with me because it was a chance to spend time with the dog. Now, when I take a trip away from the house, for whatever reason, the dog stays behind because I want the time away. I want to give the dog an opportunity to be detached from me so that it's not so traumatic when I do leave. And basically no drama associated with departures or arrivals. So low key, calm, reward them when they have 4 feet on the floor. Those are all steps that we can take day to day to help our dogs be more at ease with our comings and goings.
Right. And I think it's really important to repeat that, for pet parents out there seeking a solution, these are just behavior modification. These are things that you do physically, that how you interact with your dog.
Yep.
Too often I think pet parents want this silver bullet. They want a magic pill. They want this thing that they can just give and it be done. But when we're talking about behavior, it really requires your active participation. This can't be a passive,
Yes.
here's a pill and you're done, your dog will be fixed. And so, I really like that all of those things you said, they're cheap, they're free, they require very
Yes,
little
they
time
are.
and effort, but they do require consistency. So maybe also just give a little bit of advice to that young pet parent out there. It's kind of their first dog. They haven't had a dog in a long time. It's their first cat, something. Again, you mentioned sort of the nudging, but what about like the daily routine and structure? I know dogs just thrive and excel in daily structure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing to remember is that our dogs are living individuals just like we are, and they require some very basic but very consistent things. They need, regular exercise. They need some concentrated time with them. So it's not okay to just engage with them in activities that are fun for you. You should also be engaging in activities that are fun for them. Playing ball, teaching them a trick, taking them on a walk, things that are of interest to a dog. I mean, I'm sorry, but your Netflix binging is not necessarily, near and dear to your dog's heart. So addressing their needs and making sure that you do it on a consistent basis. Same with their feeding schedule, same with their exercising schedule, same with their elimination schedule. Putting it on a schedule and trying to keep to that schedule as best you're able will be helpful to the dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you're sitting here saying, look, my work schedule is irregular, my life is irregular, that's not really the structure that we're referring to. It's the expectation of what's to happen or follow. So that means that in the morning when you guys wake up, that the first thing you do is you take a quick potty walk, right? And then that's followed by feeding and then a longer walk. And then of course you leave for work. When you come home, you go outside. It's that routine, I think, that dogs are really looking for and need, right? It's not that they don't have an alarm clock. They don't say, wait, it's 6:30. Although sometimes I think my cat might have an alarm clock, but that's a different issue. But the reality is they want to know what to expect. And the other thing too, Dr. Sim, that I really try to emphasize to pet parents is this, dogs and cats are creatures that are really much more closely governed by like the phases of the moon, the time of day, the sunlight, the seasons, barometric pressure. And so this is why this structure is so essential for them. They don't want to, as you mentioned, binge Netflix at 2 a.m., They really would much rather go for a walk at 5 p.m. or something like that. And of course, my work in pet obesity, it's always about, we need that sustained aerobic activity of all the things that you can do for your own mental well-being as well as your mammals, any mammals. That is about 20 minutes of aerobic activity. That's the only thing we know, and Dr. Sin, you can back me up on this, that resets all three of the major neurotransmitters, the chemicals in your brain that modulate our emotional state. So aerobic activity is essential, not just to maintain a healthy weight, but also for our emotional and intellectual well-being.
Yeah, you're being kind. I always tell people at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
So there you go. Yeah.
Well, for humans, you go back. I always rely on that Duke Smile study. And if you're watching this today and you're a pet parent saying, wait, what are these guys talking about? Neurochemicals and aerobic activity. Well, way back, in the 90s, Duke University put up Prozac versus daily walks. And they found that daily walks of 20 minutes sustained aerobic activity, that was kind of the minimum amount. I agree with you. 30 or 40 minutes is even better. That was really reset the neurochemistry. So, again, it's been studied in other mammalian species, and it's been found to have a similar effect. So, I think that I love this bits of advice because I think too often people want to give the latest supplement. They want to give the latest medication. And the reality is it's a matter of, rewarding the positive behaviors, ignoring the negative behaviors unless they're injurious. It's almost that simple.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, the standard joke is, I'm sorry, I don't have a purple pill for that, right? Because of the pharmaceutical ad that will remain nameless. But yeah, I agree. A lot of it is consistent reinforcement of desired behavior and prevention of or failure to reward behavior that you don't want. And that's going to go a long way. Just listening to you talk made me think of something else. Interestingly enough, one of the other complaints that I've had associated with clients being with their pets 24/7 with this COVID pandemic is, interestingly enough, some dogs getting more grumpy associated with the constant contact,
Right.
and the perpetual petting and the continuous hugging and the Gucci that people are doing. And I've ended up prescribing, if you will, nap time or downtime for the dog because this business of having the entire family on top of them 24/7 seems to be driving them crazy.
Yeah.
So we talk about the structure. They actually do need some quiet time, some chill time, some time to relax, just like we do. Go figure.
No, I love it. And again, I think we're going to see an entire spectrum of these types of questions and behavioral issues. So it's really important for us to be attentive, because the key with any behavior problem is early recognition, early intervention for successful outcomes. And so if you're a pet parent out there today and you're sort of questioning, like, I'm worried my dog might have some of these signs, I don't know what to do, the most important thing you can do right now is contact your veterinarian and start to have this conversation, because what really breaks my heart is the people who they ignore it. The behavior was acceptable until it wasn't. And then they allowed it to escalate. Something that, I always used to say, if I could just rewind the tape, if I could just go back in time 6 months earlier, we could have had much different changes and outcomes. And that's the part in behavior. And that's why I love what you do, Dr. Leslie Sen, because you are really an amazing person. I mean, I couldn't think of anyone better to talk to about this post-quarantine separation anxiety. Any last minute advice you have for veterinary professionals and pet parents out there that are wondering, is this going to happen to me?
Well, I would segue or follow up with your comment about being proactive. I mean, if people watching this have questions, by all means, contact your veterinarian, ask if they think it's a problem. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? They'll say, well, no, it's not a problem, and you can go on with your life. But if it is a problem, you can intervene early, because one of the ways that we get better at doing things is by practicing and doing them over and over again. And we don't want your dog to get better at destroying your home or barking or howling, that's not what we want to have happen. So early intervention is what's going to make it easier to address the issue or concern. So ask, and at the worst, you'll be told that it's not a problem. But if you do have an issue, then you can get help early on, and help is available. So by all means.
And veterinary professionals of all walks of life want to help you with this issue. This is a judgment-free issue with us. I mean, we are desperate to help you, because we see too often the relinquishment, the abandonment, perhaps even euthanasia involved. So we want to help, and we want to help early. I got to tell you, I have been so thrilled talking with you today, Dr. Sen. Again, you can check her out at behaviorsolutions.guru. Love that website. behaviorsolutions.guru.
Easy to remember.
She is a guru. She is a guru. Well, on behalf of Vertical Vet, it's been my pleasure once again to share with you this really essential content that you need to thrive in what is quickly going to be the post-COVID-19 era. As always, I am Dr. Ernie Ward, Executive Director of Education for Vertical Vet, and these are the types of topics that we discuss every month. If you're a member, if you're not, and you want to find out how to become one, visit us at verticalvet.com. We also offer a more intimate group called the Vertical Vet Platinum Groups, where we take groups of 10 practice owners and practice managers. We meet together monthly to go into a deeper, more personal dive into the issues that are affecting your daily practice and how we can help you succeed. So again, thank you so much for watching these webinars. If you haven't seen them all, definitely check them out. They're on our website as well as YouTube and Facebook. But we have been really, really thrilled to bring to you this type of content. Again, this is an unprecedented time. I hope that you're staying safe. I hope that your business is thriving. We don't know what the next few months are going to hold. We will stay on top of it. And as breaking news comes forward, or as tools and resources become available that we think you need to know about, Vertical Vet members, we will be there to guide you. So again, I am Dr. Ernie Ward. Thanks for spending this time with us. Stay safe. Give your pets a hug for me. Bye.